Yo, what is up, everyone? The Sports Court is back after a wild divisional weekend in the NFL. Probably the best and most competitive weekend of football when it comes to NFL playoff football that we've ever seen in I don't know how long, maybe a decade, maybe even longer, Greg, with the finale of the Chiefs and Bills being a show put on by both Patrick Mahomes and one Josh Allen. We're going to dive into every single game. We're going to start with Tennessee and Cincinnati, talk about Joe Burrow and his meteoric rise to stardom along with all the other young quarterbacks and the success that they're having here in this 2022 playoff. Yeah, like he is skyrocketing. I have a Joe Burrow Nike Authentic jersey that's signed by Joey B himself, and the value of that is skyrocketing right now as we speak. The guy is phenomenal. But don't worry, we're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk about every game. Only a field goal, or every game came down to a field goal at the end of regulation. But what you got for me, Greg? I know.
When you said you had a signed jersey,
yes,
by Joe Burrow,
yes,
and you know what? Not to get off subject a little bit, but you know I'm gonna do it for a second. Just because you said that is a segue. Guess what I found? Last week, from when I was 10 years old and 9 years old, an authentic autograph from Earl Campbell and J.R. Richard. And you know I've had J.R. Richard on the show before. I didn't realize that I had that autograph from him. I harkened back to it. J.R. Richard, authentic autograph from 1979, and Earl Campbell. You think I can make some money off of those?
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody's going to want to add those to the collection if you put them up for sale. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and that adds to the.
But you know what, Eddie?
To the return.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, good to see you, my man, and I like that opening. And you're right. Hey, the Cincinnati Bengals, the playoff games were tremendous.
And not just that, Greg, but what about the narrative in the NFL now that we're all seeing? It's out with the old, no Brady, no Rodgers championship weekend. And how long has it been? It's been like since 2009 or something like that you're not going to get at least one of those guys on championship weekend. And now you're going to have, the best young talent at the quarterback position in the entire league when you talk about Patrick Mahomes and you talk about Joey Burrow. And, of course, we're not going to see Josh Allen there, but he put on a show. And Stafford, Mr. Johnny-come-lately himself, showing up to the party. A lot of people questioned whether or not he could get it done in the playoffs. I think he's proven that he could do that, although they did give us a scare. I didn't know if I was watching a Super Bowl from a few years ago as Tom Brady slowly but surely started to come back because for whatever reason, it's not even just Tom Brady, though. It's like for whatever reason in those moments, the other team just starts to become unraveled. The team across from Brady, multiple fumbles. They continue to give the ball back. Cam Akers, after looking like a man possessed in his first game back after tearing his Achilles, he still looked every bit as athletic. But how could you trust the guy? I couldn't believe they were still giving him the football because he continuously was putting it on the ground. And that's probably the only reason why Brady was even able to come back in that game. Because let's face it. Hey, the Rams had him right where they wanted him. They were explosive on offense. That defense
let Tom Brady down.
That defense, I give it at the end. That was a terrible call by Todd Bowles. I'll give you that. But all game long, Brady was harassed by Aaron Donald and company, and that's always been their recipe against Tom Brady.
Right. And if you want to talk about that game first, we can do that. And the thing about that game was, now Tom Brady, we'll see if he decides to come back. He said he wanted to play till he was 45. I mean, what this guy was able to do at the age of 44 years old is unprecedented, to say the least. That's why I had to clear my throat when we first started, because I was thinking about, just all these quarterbacks like you're talking about and just how great they played this weekend. And we're talking about Tom Brady right now and the exploits that he was able to pull off in that game to bring them back from down 27-3. You know what I was saying to myself when it was going down? I was like, here comes Tom Brady. And the thing about it is, though, he was just depleted with weaponry, and it was obvious with Tampa Bay in that game that they didn't have Antonio Brown, they didn't have Chris Godwin, and they didn't have a couple of offensive linemen, and it was just glaring the deficiencies that they had on offense of the guys that was missing. As great as Tom Brady is, the way the Rams are playing right now, the firepower that they have on defense, it was just too much for Tom Brady to pretty much overcome by himself. Of course, you have Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette back, but hey, the Rams were up for the task. And again, I want to say this about Tom Brady: what this guy was able to do before I give the Rams their props and Matthew Stafford, but what he was able to do at 44, having an MVP type season, and he says he doesn't know if he's going to return for another season. Now, he said initially that he wanted to play until he was 45 years old. He didn't slow down a bit this past season, so I can definitely see him doing that. Now, of course, at some point, Tom Brady's going to have to retire. I mean, that's just the way it goes. But from the way he played this past season, he was the best quarterback in the game, along with Aaron Rodgers, who's probably going to win the MVP. But the MVP is going to come from one of those guys. Both of those guys have now exited the playoffs, and not so much because of them. And we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers and if he's going to return or not. I don't know, but we can talk about that in a second. And, of course, the Packers losing that game to the 49ers, who's going to play the Rams. But that Tampa game with the Rams, hey, Matthew Stafford. Now, I was one of the ones, Eddie, who actually asked you the question, do you trust Matthew Stafford in the playoffs? And you said immediately a few weeks ago, you said, yes, I do. And you trusted the Rams because you just know that the talent they have on the defense side of the ball. And again, I've always known that Matthew Stafford had the arm talent. And I knew he was a guy that led his team back from comebacks when he was in Detroit. But he hasn't had a playoff win. So, and he has been prone to turn the ball over at the most inopportune times. But what he showed me the other day was when he threw that pass to Secretariat, that's Cooper Kupp, by the way. The Triple Crown winner. Anybody who doesn't know, Secretariat is the former Triple Crown winner, Triple Crown winning horse back in the day. But that's what Cooper Kupp is on the football field, a horse.
He's a workhorse.
How did they let him get behind the defense, Eddie?
I don't understand how it happened. I mean, if anything, you would think just knock the guy down or something. Take a flag, do whatever you can. Don't let him do exactly what they let him do and go right down the seam, and set Los Angeles up to win that game. And that was just one of many crazy moments in the last 2 minutes of these football games that we saw. We saw interceptions in Tennessee, blocked kicks, incredible offensive output in Kansas City and Buffalo. Unbelievable. But as far as the Rams and Brady, the Rams, the Rams were amazing, man. I mean, because the thing about it was Brady, in moments like that, Brady ends up winning those games. Yeah. You know what I mean? Everything's going wrong. You keep putting the football on the turf. He's going to find a way to get to overtime with you. He's going to find a way to get the ball first. He's going to put you out of your misery in a game that you had won, coming out of the locker room in the second half. And they did not allow that to happen. And the fact that it was Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, that is a big, big, big nod to Sean McVay and what he's been able to do with that offense and putting that offense together.
Hey, I agree with that. And it was just a
Sorry for the short moment of silence. I'm just, when I really thought about it, it almost blows me away because you talk about the trust. I guarantee you there was not a lot of trust. There's a lot of trust in that defense, but there was not a lot of trust in Matthew Stafford. And here we are back-to-back weeks. The guy shows that he's definitely up to the task, and he was definitely worth what they paid to get him into town.
Hey, you know what? And that's what it's looking like. And one thing about Matthew Stafford, I've watched him since he's been in Georgia. One thing about Matthew Stafford, I've never questioned his toughness. I've never questioned his talent on the football field. Now, I didn't know about his intangibles as far as if he can lead his team. Now, again, he was playing in Detroit. So it's obvious that he just had to get out of Detroit to really show his worth because the talent has always been there. He's always been a guy that was able, like I mentioned, was able to lead his team from behind. But I didn't know about the intangibles as far as his leadership, like how would he fare as far as turnovers are concerned. Now, we know he's lost some games this season because of turnovers, and he's really hurt his team in that regard. But the last couple of games, in these playoffs at least, he's really shown that he's shored those things up. And that's a big credit to Sean McVay, really, really getting that guy's confidence at an all-time high and just letting his talent take over. He has the weapons around him. Like we talked about, you saw early on in that game, they got Odell Beckham Jr. involved, and that's what they've been doing as of late. They've been incorporating him more and more in the offense and giving the defense more to think about alongside Cooper Kupp, who's what did he catch? 159 passes this past season. I mean, that's crazy, man. Led the league as far as receivers are concerned. Led the league in receptions, yardage, and I think it's touchdowns. That's why they call him the Triple Crown winner, and touchdowns for a receiver. But you have him on one side. Now you have OBJ, and Sean McVay is the type of guy, he's going to take advantage of that. That's why they went out and got OBJ. They just didn't get OBJ to let him just be a pretty toy that's just out there running routes and they're not throwing the ball to him. They're actually utilizing his talents, realizing they have that toy for Matthew Stafford, and to help Matthew Stafford earn that money that they gave him. We all know the Los Angeles Rams, they put all their cards on the table this season, and it's all now or not for the Los Angeles Rams. Everything, because they don't have any draft picks. I mean, of course they have draft picks, but I don't know how many first-round draft picks they have coming up in the near future. Everything, they've mortgaged their future to win a Super Bowl either this year or next season, preferably this season, of course, because it's still this season. So, but Matthew Stafford, again, the offensive line has done a great job in protecting him. Sean McVay has done a great job in calling plays to get the receivers open. He's utilizing his weapons that he has at his disposal to the best of his ability. So that's some talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball now. All they had, and not to take anything away from Jared Goff, he did lead them to a Super Bowl. They did not win that Super Bowl. Or did they win that? No. They lost to the Pats.
Yeah.
But Matthew Stafford is a different breed.
Well, those moments where Brady, like we talked about, but
right. Well, Matthew
that's why I was so impressed with what they were able to do.
But you know what, too, and all the credit goes to Matthew Stafford in this game from what he was able to do. But I'm not taking anything away from Brady because he willed this team back. But it was obvious that the injuries that he had on his side of the ball was just too much to overcome against a very, very good defense in the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, that touchdown pass, that dime he threw to Mike Evans when Mike Evans beat Jalen Ramsey for that touchdown pass. I said, oh boy, here we go. If it was, I'm gonna tell you right now, and I know if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk right now. But if they would have found a way to stop Matthew Stafford from that, I mean, granted, that was a great throw by Matthew Stafford, but if you're the defense, if you're Todd Bowles in that defense, you had to be kicking yourselves after that because you can't, that's the one person you cannot let get behind the defense. I heard there was some miscommunications about who should blitz and who should not blitz.
Why are you blitzing? I mean, I don't know why they're blitzing in that situation, to be completely honest.
They definitely didn't want Matthew Stafford to sit back there without being under duress and let him sit back there and plant his feet and throw an accurate pass, and that's exactly what happened. But to his credit, he was able
that sounds pretty good compared to what actually did happen, which was he threw a bomb.
He threw a bomb. I mean,
the one thing that you absolutely can't let happen. But, I'm going to go here right now. I think a lot of credit has to be given to Les Snead because you brought up, that's the general manager for the Los Angeles Rams. You brought up Odell Beckham Jr. and how important he is to Cooper Kupp in that offense. And you saw what OBJ was able to do in the wild card round when you pay too much attention to Cooper Kupp. And OBJ is able to make some really big catches for some chunk yardage and get that offense set up.
Using more downfield now.
Yeah, being able to somehow piece together a running game, bringing in Sony Michel and getting him going late. This combination of Les Snead and Sean McVay, getting him going late and getting him into the playoffs, getting Cam Akers back, making something of this running game when really they were decimated at the running back position. They were extremely hurt by the loss of Robert Woods, and going out and getting Odell Beckham Jr., getting Sony Michel, having Cam Akers be able to come back for a big play for the playoff run. Whatever they're doing over there organizationally and in the building, they're doing the right things because it's showing on the field. The plans that they're putting in place throughout the season, the chances that they're taking, they are turning out in the positive for them, and they're looking like genius moves. And both Sean McVay and Les Snead, you wonder why head coaches are getting picked out from under this tree and getting hired. You wonder why they want to. This is one of the organizations that teams want to emulate. They want to go get a Sean McVay. They want to get a Les Snead. Why? Because of decisions like that and how they're turning out now. And now the Rams look like they've got a great opportunity to be playing on Super Bowl Sunday as the only thing standing in between them, and that is divisional foe San Francisco.
We'll talk about that matchup between San Francisco in a bit here when we break those games down. But the thing about McVay, I mean, we know he's an offensive genius. and now he just has a full complement of weapons at his disposal. And it's shining through right now. You look at Cam Akers. Now, we've talked about him, the way he's come back. Now, he had a couple of bad turnovers in that game. And again, the Rams were able to overcome 4 turnovers. And to your point, usually Tom Brady will be able to exploit that, and he'll win that game.
I mean, he was, though. It was going that direction.
It was going that direction. If they would have made that stop and went in overtime, that would have been ball game. But again, if it was a fifth, it was the Rams' time. But no knock on Tom Brady. He hasn't descended at all. Now, we'll see. I definitely want him playing again next season. We shall see. But it's Matthew Stafford's time to shine right now, and that's exactly what he did. And the thing about, again, they're utilizing their weapons at their disposal. Cam Akers coming back from that torn Achilles, I mean, that's impressive as it gets. And for him to come back and to be that effective, even though he fumbled a couple of times, but you still have to account for him, and now you have to account for the run game of the Rams to go along with Sony Michel. To your point, the pickups that they've made, I mean, that was a wise, shrewd move to pick up Sony Michel, who was ousted by the New England Patriots after being a first-round draft pick, and he's fit in well with them. Now they have a 2 running back set. I think they've got the other running back in the fold right now. What's his name? The guy that they drafted last year?
Henderson.
So that's a 3-headed monster right there that they can employ from the running back position. And if they keep the defense honest by running the football, and of course you know what happens in the passing game, how dynamic they can be in the passing game, the Rams can be a team, well, they are a team to be reckoned with. But the thing about it is, what's more impressive to me is the fact not only are they just an offensive team, what's so good about the Rams this season is they're playing physical, and they have the totality of their team right now. I mean, the addition of Von Miller. You want to talk about additions? Von Miller had 2 sacks this past game. He's rejuvenated. He's playing in the playoffs. This is all he wanted to do is get to another Super Bowl. All they need him to do is rush the quarterback and just be Von Miller. He doesn't have to be the only guy on the defense making plays. You know you have Aaron Donald in that middle, but the pressure that they put on the quarterback from that defensive line, then you have Floyd coming from one linebacker position as well. What I like on that defensive side of the ball is the fact that they fly around and their tenacity is top notch, and they just give teams problems. And they're a team to be reckoned with moving forward. Now, we'll talk about them in the 49ers, who had their number this season in the last 6 games. As a matter of fact, they're 6-0 against the Rams. But we'll see. But we'll talk about that in a second, though. But anything else?
I mean, it's certainly important to note. I mean, just to touch on the defense, that's you got to give a lot of credit to Raheem Morris, former head coach himself, understanding how to use his personnel. And you brought up Von Miller, and all they need him to do is rush the passer off the edge. But that's not all they're having him do. They're having him drop back into coverage. They're having him disguise blitzes, and dropping back, and he can get his hands on the football, and if he gets a big interception or forces a turnover, that's huge for them. And then they're still getting pressure off the edge, Floyd and company, as well as up the middle from Donald. It makes it really hard for a quarterback to have success against them. Now, when we talk about that matchup between
the defense one direction, because they're coming from everywhere.
Right, and when you talk about the matchup that they're going to have, in the NFC Championship against each other, why San Francisco is so good, you think, man, this is a great defense on paper. How can San Francisco win? It's because they have such a dominant running game, unlike any other in the league. Yeah, we've seen the workhorses carry the load with like Derrick Henry in Tennessee, but this isn't that type of running game. This is a type of running game where it's a well-oiled machine and everything working together with the offensive line and the design of the plays and the timing of everything and stretching the defense wide open and looking for cutback lanes. You can use 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks. You can use the likes of Elijah Mitchell, and JaMychal Hasty to do some things. Now, I know we want Trey Sermon to do a lot, and he hasn't done much there, but still, one thing about Kyle Shanahan is he's going to have a dominant running game, and that dominant running game, nothing neutralizes a pass rush more. So when you've got a really tough pass rush, when you can run at those guys, you can keep them on their heels, you know how difficult that can make it for even the best defensive lines that are good at rushing the quarterback. Because if the less Jimmy Garoppolo has to throw, let's face it, the better of a chance the 49ers have to win, because they've shown already they can damn near win a game with their defense, and they've shown that they've had the Rams number.
Well, of course, right. In the last 6 games at least. Now, we'll see what happens this upcoming weekend, but recent history.
Now, I know Daryl would agree.
Right. Now, the difference is this week, the Rams are playing at home. And the thing that helps the 49ers in this regard, before we kind of slightly touch on the Green Bay 49ers game, since we're already talking about the upcoming matchup with the Rams and the 49ers, but the difference is in this game is last week when they played in Green Bay in Lambeau Field, when they played there, the weather was bad and they couldn't use a lot of that misdirection that they usually employ because the footing wasn't that good. I mean, the weather was bad in Lambeau. So the thing about this upcoming week, they're playing in the Dome, and of course the Rams are fast and they're going to utilize that to their advantage as well. You know they're going to be flying all over the field and they're going to be at home, and those fans are going to be rockers as all outdoors as you can think of, so they're going to be fired up. Of course, the Rams having a chance to go play in the Super Bowl, be the first team to play in the Super Bowl at their home stadium, and to have a chance to win the Super Bowl in their home stadium. So I'm sure they're going to be fired up. But again, like you're saying, what the 49ers do, first of all, the 49ers are very physical. You saw what the special teams did against the Packers. That pretty much won that game against Green Bay. But they're physical. You saw Nick Bosa comes back from that concussion, which it wasn't any mystery that he was going to play from that concussion. Just like it's no mystery that our boy the Honey Badger is going to play this upcoming weekend. You know, like I said, you know what the concussion protocol is, or you know what the test is when it gets serious like this. How many fingers I got up? 1, 2, 3. He's good.
We're gonna have to give Greg and M.
Color right here? What's that color? He's good to go.
We're gonna have to give you a memory test or an amnesia test because you forgot Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just went to the Super Bowl in their own stadium and won it last season. Yeah, he did. And now the Rams have a chance to make it. The Rams have a chance to. Well, they have a chance to make it back-to-back years where this could happen.
That's what it is, back-to-back. I knew it was something like that. See, I was seeing if y'all were listening right there. But I appreciate that.
You know, I'm not gonna let you slide.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Cool.
Well, because I'm thinking, what world am I living in? I'm like, did I have COVID or something? Am I losing my memory?
I think I'm wrong here, but just last season that did happen. So maybe it's
I don't think I should say, but
maybe it's back-to-back seasons where that's gonna. Hey, that would be tremendous. So that's what it is. So we'll see if that happens. But it's something. It's still something. I have to do the research on this, and I actually read this, and maybe I'm just stating that wrong. But it is something that if they win the Super Bowl this season, it would be something. Maybe I'm talking about them playing in the Dome Stadium. Maybe that's what it is. But regardless of the fact that they have a tremendous opportunity, Nick Bosa, he played against the Packers, and you saw the impact that he had against the Packers and your boy Aaron Rodgers. And again, the footing is going to be such to where now they can really utilize Deebo Samuel. I mean, this guy is coming out of the backfield. This guy is running routes. He's playing wide receiver. So now what the San Francisco 49ers can do, they can get a pass rush with just 4. So that enables those defensive backs, so they can have more defensive backs playing back there to really try to negate some of the stuff that Sean McVay likes to do. And Kyle Shanahan, hey, I have to give him credit. I mean, I knew he was a good coach, but he's actually a great coach. From what he's been able to do, that team starting out slow this season, and everybody talking about he's on the hot seat. He's just continued to show why he got them to a Super Bowl not long ago, and he may just do it again this season. He has a tremendous opportunity, even though they are playing at SoFi Stadium. I think that's the name of the stadium.
SoFi
Stadium.
Yeah. And what you were thinking about is that the Rams are going to be the first team in NFL history to host the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl stadium.
There it is.
That's what.
Hey, thanks, my man. Thanks.
That's what you were trying to.
That's why I was.
That was it.
I kind of glossed over today when I was reading up on something, and I said, okay, so that's what it is, man. I appreciate that. Hey, but Nick Bosa and those guys are physical and with that run game. So, in my opinion, I know my cousin Daryl is listening right now, and you know what, man? It's hard to beat a team
3 times in a season.
One season, let alone 7 times. But I'm still gonna go with the Rams right now.
Well,
go with the Rams.
hey, the Rams are playing really good football right now. We know that.
But I'll say this: I would not be surprised, and I'm going with the Rams.
Oh man, you fence riding son of a gun.
Hey, but I'm about to ride the fence right here But I would not be surprised if the 49ers, because a lot of people like to talk about Jimmy G, but the one thing about Jimmy G is that I'm impressed with, the thing about it, now granted, he's almost taken them out of some games, and he has. But he was just in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago as their quarterback, and no matter what, he doesn't have to be the guy that wins the game for them, and of course they're winning in spite of Jimmy G, but he is their leader, and it is something that he does for the morale of that team. All those guys believe in Jimmy G on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So his leadership qualities go understated, in my opinion, and I think he gets a lot of flack when all this guy does is win. All he does is win.
They've been, very successful ever since they've gotten him. And one thing I've been impressed about with Jimmy G is he doesn't seem, even in the biggest moments, he's not afraid to take a chance. He's not afraid to try to make the throw. He's going to stay in there, take the shot, try to make the throw. And it wasn't always his fault. I know there were some throws that could have been picked off, and the game could have, turned out differently had that happened. A couple near pick sixes. But I also saw, balls bouncing off of George Kittle's hands, that would have been surefire 20, 25-yard gains, and who knows what he could have done after it, if he would have just caught the football. Jimmy G has shown that he can make those throws, and he has played in these big games, and you have to believe that being there before, he's only going to be that much more collected, and that much more better. Now we know he is dealing with an injury. And how that's going to affect him, I don't know. But when you can turn around and hand the ball off to Mitchell, and you can turn around and you can hand the ball off to Deebo Samuel, that really helps you out a lot.
Eddie, what you just said right there is the key to the game, in my opinion. And again, I'm going with the Rams because I like what they're doing on both sides of the ball right now. And
they're playing their best football that they played all year long, right, and that's what you want to see out of a team at this time of the year.
I'm not scared to make my picks at all. Never have been, never will be. But I have to give respect to what the 49ers have been able to do up to this point. And again, it would not surprise me if that was. Obviously, look at what they've done with the Rams in the past, over the recent past, as a matter of fact. So, but I'm gonna go with the Rams just because of the firepower and the way Stafford is playing right now, and the way the defense is playing, the way they're playing collectively. And they're at home. I just think the Rams get it done.
Well, the reason you can't get off the fence is because DeMeco Ryans a guy who is going to he's already getting head coaching interviews, and if he happens to shut down this red hot Rams offense, he's going to get a head coaching job this offseason. You can mark my words. He may get one already, but I guarantee you if they go to the Super Bowl, you can punch that ticket, you can take it to the bank. He's going to get a job as a head coach in the NFL, because you just look at what he's been able to do. You're shutting down high-powered offense, number one offense, scoring offense in the Dallas Cowboys. You go after the MVP or supposed MVP in Aaron Rodgers, and you're able to take him down. And then if you're able to eliminate the Rams after the show that they've been able to put on with Matthew Stafford and the likes of Cooper Kupp and that running game, then right then and there, all of a sudden you got to start believing, hey, they could even win the Super Bowl, because it don't matter if it's the Bengals or the Chiefs. You have to think DeMeco Ryans is going to have something up his sleeve for whatever they do on offense. Now, the Chiefs, after what they were able to do against the Bills, of course, that offense looks unstoppable. But you would think some of the same thing when you think about the Packers offense and how they were able to, aside from one drive out the gate where Aaron Rodgers was damn near perfect, leading to an A.J. Dillon touchdown. After that, he wasn't able to do anything. And what's one of the number one things I always talk about coaches can do, whether they're scheme coaches that are running the defense or they're head coaches, is the ability to adjust your game plan to fit whatever the other team is attacking you with. And so far this season, DeMeco Ryans has proven to be a master of doing just that. And here in the playoffs against the best offenses in the league. And they're going to be tested again this weekend. And if they prevail, watch out, because they may ride that toughness on defense. They always say the saying defense wins championships. They've been saying it for a long time. This is a pure example of that. Running the football and playing really tough defense and taking advantage of special teams. That's what championship football is all about.
Absolutely.
But it's old school,
And if you remember,
they're the one old school team, they're the one team that plays old school football that's still alive. Everybody else is more of a new age gunslinger type of team.
Around.
Yes, sir.
Right. And the thing about it, they're going to try to knock those receivers around. Cooper Kupp. The same game plan that the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick had against the Rams with that high-powered offense with Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce and those guys back in Tom Brady's first Super Bowl. The defense is what really got got the Rams out of their game plan and out of sorts, so to speak, because they were physical. They was knocking those guys around, and those guys started thinking twice about coming over the middle and being all cute, catching the passes that they've been catching all year and running up and down the field. And so they took their will. And I think that's the game plan that the 49ers are going to have this week in that stadium is, again, they're going to try to get pressure with a 4-man rush. That way they can deploy all their secondary, as many people as possible, to stop a lot of all that cute stuff that Sean McVay likes to do, and they're going to try to knock those guys around. And, of course, on the offensive side of the ball, the way you negate the Rams from really being explosive is ball control and controlling the time of the clock and time of possession. So you know they're going to try to do that with Deebo Samuel and their running game. And, again, the difference between this week and last week they couldn't even really employ their entire game plan for the play action passes, a lot of that misdirection they like to do. Now, we'll see what Trent Williams, we'll see if he's healthy. Of course, they have two great offensive linemen in Williams and Mack. And we'll see if Trent Williams, if that ankle can hold up, because he's a potential Hall of Famer right there that they really need. But that misdirection, now that they're going to have the footing to go along with their game plan, I mean, they can really keep the Rams at bay and really keep them honest with a lot of that misdirection, because the inclement weather is not going to be an issue. Now, so we shall see. But I think the Rams get it done. But I think it's going to be very tough. The 49ers are a very, very tough team, well-coached team. But it's going to boil down to who can control the time of possession and really keep that other offense. If San Francisco can keep them off the field more times than not, they have a strong chance. And if Jimmy G, if he just doesn't throw that untimely interception that really breaks the backs of San Francisco, if he just does everything but beat his team, but beat himself, I think San Francisco has a strong chance. But I just think with the way Matthew, and that goes the same way before we move on, that goes the same for Matthew Stafford as well. Yeah, we're praising him up to this point, but we know that Matthew Stafford, he can go out there and we can look up Sunday evening or Sunday night or whatever, and Matthew Stafford, as much as he's one of the main reasons that they're winning right now, that they're in this position because of his exploits, if they lose that game, I'm here to tell you right now, it's going to be because of Matthew Stafford throwing a couple of interceptions or losing the football on a fumble because Nick Bosa has gotten to him. I think if the Rams lose, it's going to be because of Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Now, looking over in the AFC, Cincinnati and KC.
What's your take on Aaron Rodgers?
So what with Aaron? What's going to happen next with Aaron? Why he hasn't been able to be successful? I mean, you know, I'm not expecting him to come out and say anything anytime soon. You know, he's already kind of, going to say he's going to have respect to other players that have to make decisions. Like, I mean, it's the number one story on Pro Football Talk right now. Aaron Rodgers says he'll be sensitive to guys who have to make decisions like Davante Adams. We got to figure out where are the Packers going from here? And it's hard to imagine Aaron Rodgers playing football anywhere else. For me, it's hard to imagine where is he going to go where he's going to have any more success or have a better situation or, road to success than what he already has in Green Bay. As good as that team is as already constructed, with his rapport with Davante Adams.
He's probably going to win MVP.
And I'm wondering, is now at this age, is playing at Lambeau Field late in the year no longer an advantage for Aaron Rodgers? Does he need to get on the West Coast somewhere warmer, where if he's got home field advantage to the playoffs, then he can play somewhere warm?
Right.
Only problem is if you go to the AFC, are you going to have home field advantage? Are you going to be able to take that away from Mahomes or from Allen? Are you going to find yourself playing in Kansas City where it's cold in the wintertime, or in Orchard Park where we know it's frigid up there in Buffalo, or in Cincinnati? There you go. So Tennessee, I don't see where there's an easier path to victory or path to the Super Bowl for Aaron Rodgers than if he just stays in Green Bay. And I think it'd even be better for him, rather than going heel turn and going through what Brett Favre went, where there was like a period of time where he was kind of persona non grata. They wouldn't accept him back quite yet, until he retired and was completely done with all the other organizations. Then, they'll bring him back and welcome him back. But in between then, nobody from Green Bay will want to talk about him, or he's just the person that's not going to be mentioned. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers needs to go through that, especially whenever look at what they've been able to do. Even though they've fallen short, they've got to figure out a way to get over that hump. But just getting there, it's in itself has been a great feat. Year after year after year, they've been able to do that. So,
and I hope they never get over the hump.
But at some point, you think
Cowboys division. In the Cowboys conference. So, and you heard me
the grass
say
isn't
that.
always greener on the other side. Where's he going to go, to
I
Denver?
want Green Bay to win the Super Bowl, and as much as I've grown to like Aaron Rodgers, that's not my favorite guy. And of course, a tremendous quarterback, and he can still play for another 5 years or however long he wants to play and still be at the top of his game. Again, we're talking about a guy that's going to win the MVP again this year. So his success as a quarterback is unquestioned. So the thing about Aaron Rodgers is, who knows if Devontae Adams is coming back next season? And what have I always told you about his head coach? LaFleur. I don't care what they say in the media. And of course, it will behoove him to want Aaron Rodgers back. But again, Aaron Rodgers does not want to be part of a rebuild.
The question you got to ask yourself is, have they topped out? Have they topped out? You said you don't want them to ever get over the hump. Can they?
I don't know now. This is their best opportunity this season. But I've always said,
go ask Jim Kelly about getting over that hump.
4 losses in the Super Bowl. What the thing about it is, I don't think they can now, because this season was their best season. And was their best chance. And I've never been a believer in Green Bay in that regard, to where every season I've always said, I think Green Bay is a tad bit overrated. I think they're a tad bit overrated. Even though they have one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the game, but I've always thought that they've been overrated. And you saw what they were able to do last season, or what they were not able to do against Tampa and Tom Brady, the GOAT, last season, when a lot of people said that Aaron Rodgers probably should have ran it in or whatever. But of course, Green Bay right now, they have a lot of rebuilding to do and a lot of decisions to make as far as contracts. But Aaron Rodgers, who knows what he's going to do? But I guarantee you, the Green Bay Packers, they're going to say all the right things right now. They're saying all the right things. They want Aaron Rodgers back. And one with any logical mind would think that would be the case, because he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's going to be coming off another MVP season. If it's not him, it's going to be Tom Brady. So I get that. But I'm telling you, and we will not know this. This is merely speculation on my part, and I've said it a million times, and I don't care what Matt LaFleur says. Matt LaFleur is ready to move on from Aaron Rodgers. But the Green Bay Packers and their brass, they're going to say everything in the media to put everything in Aaron Rodgers' court. And so if he does decide to retire or demand a trade, if he doesn't get his way or whatever, the same thing like it was last season, they're going to say, see, we said we wanted him back, and we tried to do this and tried to do that, but he didn't want to be back. But I guarantee you, at the end of the day, Matt LaFleur is ready to move on and see what he can do, so he can get the credit for all these wins when they win, and not just getting the blame when they lose. And he's ready to move on and give. And I don't know if they make a move for another quarterback.
The speculation hour. Yeah.
No,
look. Here's the deal. Here's what I'll
say.
say. I'll say this, and Daryl, I hope you're listening. There's only one place I can see Aaron Rodgers going, and where I legitimately think he can continue his career and compete for a Super Bowl. One place and one place
Pittsburgh.
only, and I don't think he's going there. I don't think it's Pittsburgh. I don't think it's Pittsburgh. I think it's San Francisco, and that's it. And if they would be willing to sit on Trey Lance a little bit longer, move on from Jimmy Garoppolo and bring in Aaron Rodgers, I don't know how Green Bay would ever let that happen. But that's the only place where I can see it happening, because let's face it, Aaron Rodgers is going to stay in Green Bay. I don't think he's going to the AFC, because he's looking at what's going on over there, and I don't think he wants any part of it. I guarantee you he's competitive, but stay in the AFC, where your biggest road bump to the Super Bowl is probably about to retire, because he's talking like I'm talking about Tom Brady. When he starts talking about time with family and stuff like that, it's almost like he could walk away. He could be one of them guys that walk away when you least expect it to, because all of a sudden he realizes, hey, I want to be there for this portion of my kid's life. When they're growing up and going through this and they're starting to play ball, I want to be there. I don't want to still be chasing that ring when I've got more than anybody in the game. And so his biggest obstacle to get to the Super Bowl, him being Aaron Rodgers, could be retiring in Tom Brady. So why would you go to the AFC and then unceremoniously get your ass kicked out of the league because you're getting your teeth kicked in every year by Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes? It doesn't make sense to me, Greg.
But it doesn't make sense, but you have to put yourself in Aaron Rodgers' shoes. Aaron Rodgers don't give a damn about what we think about who he can beat and who he can't beat. He's the type of guy with a personality that he believes he can beat anybody because he knows he's one of the best to ever do it. So if Aaron Rodgers feels that he can go to a team that he's surrounded with talent, I guarantee you Aaron Rodgers don't fear anybody over there, and he feels that he'll be able to get over the hump as long as you put some talent around him. Now, of course, it may not be the wisest move to go challenge Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and all those guys.
I mean, if he couldn't do it with this roster, which is a strong roster in the NFC, what makes you think he could do it?
Really, though?
Oh, come on.
Or the Green Bay Packers, really. Like I just said, I've always thought they were a bit overrated.
Top 10 defense, and then if you look at the skill position between Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams and A.J. Dillon, a good young running back, and they're tied in. Tanyan, which is don't do anything but catch touchdowns. I mean, there's talent. There's talent there. I mean, I'm just saying, when you look at the possibilities of where he could go,
to be depleted, and that's where some of the issue comes in with Green Bay because they have a lot of decisions to make as far as contracts are concerned. And Aaron Rodgers does not want to be part of a rebuild. If they decide now, if they acquiesce to what he's talking about and pay some of these guys like Devontae Adams and these guys, and they can keep all that talent in the fold. To your point, obviously, yeah, they've been very successful over the last few years, have gone to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row, other than this season where they lost, have been the most dominant team in the NFC record-wise. But if they lose a lot of players and Aaron Rodgers feels that he can go somewhere else, wherever it may be, now even though he's under contract, so some things will have to transpire, of course. But if he feels he can go somewhere like Pittsburgh and play under somebody like Mike Tomlin, and you have a defense that's in place, even though they still have some things they have to put together as well. But they have Najee Harris, a running back. They have some good receivers. I think he would take that chance. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to retire, even if Green Bay do not acquiesce to his demands about, or to his.
I mean, it seems like if
he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. I think if he has to go to the AFC and compete, that's what he'll do.
It seems like the team that would have the best chance would probably be the Denver Broncos. I mean, they're already requesting a second interview with Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, and you have to imagine that relationship alone is a big reason why they want to get him in the building with the hoping they have an opportunity to get Aaron Rodgers and ride, get the last little bit of greatness out of a superstar like they did Peyton Manning.
Be the team that he would get over the hump with.
I'm just telling you where the opportunities are going to be. I mean, like you said, yeah, maybe Pittsburgh, but here's one thing I do know: Pittsburgh really doesn't have. Pittsburgh doesn't have assets to trade, and their salary cap situation is not that great. So, and there is going to have to be some compensation. So, I could see. And then when you look at the Broncos going after Nathaniel Hackett, getting a second interview, when a guy's getting a second interview, that's a big deal. It means they really want to hire him, and why wouldn't they?
Speaking of that, and you know what? It's early on in the game, so we'll see how things. Hey, it's a process. It's a process. So we'll see how things transpire moving forward in that regard. Now, speaking of coaching hires, before I get your take on a couple of these other games, of course, the Titans and hey, we're just kicking it right now. So I know we didn't talk about the Titans and the Bengals. But real quick, before we talk about that, and of course the Chiefs.
Oh, just to be clear, I don't think he gets over the hump with anybody in the AFC, but.
Well, maybe not. But with the 49ers, I think he does.
Now, how does that?
Rodgers, you don't think that? I think Aaron Rodgers feels otherwise if he puts himself.
Well, the 49ers were my original point.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Just say Tennessee. I mean, I think he feels he can win with Tennessee, and he probably feels he can win with Pittsburgh because Mike Tomlin is such a great coach, and he probably feels that Pittsburgh with T.J. Watt and those guys that he can make enough plays with those receivers and really get them over the hump. You got to remember, this is Aaron Rodgers. This is a guy with a big ego and one of the best to ever do it. So he's not thinking on the lines of, oh, I'm scared to go over here because I don't think I can get it done. Aaron Rodgers don't give a hoot. Aaron Rodgers feels he can get it done with anything.
No, I don't doubt
He
that.
probably feels, no,
I don't doubt that he doesn't think he can get it done. I'm just telling you, I know what I saw this weekend, and there's a new sheriff in town, and I'm telling you, the AFC is not where you want to be. It's like the West used to be in the NBA.
That's to my point about I never really believed in Green Bay, and you saw me last week say that I didn't want Green Bay to go. So, but as far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, as far as his play, I'm not going to doubt Aaron Rodgers now. Of course, he has to have a team around him to help him get to that next level. But I'm telling you,
a team like the Cowboys.
Hey, speaking of the Cowboys, the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, he goes by the name of Sean Payton. Hey, you know he just.
I know Payton walked away, and that Sean Payton was coveted by Jerry Jones back in 2019 as a replacement to Jason Garrett. But I just don't think he's going to fire Mike McCarthy, and Payton may end up getting poached by somebody else.
He might, and he says he's going to sit out this upcoming season. But you know what, man?
If somebody comes and makes you an opportunity you can't refuse.
Absolutely. And, you know, Jerry,
who
knows?
If I'm Jacksonville and I'm Shad Khan, I'm going over there with a suitcase of money in both hands and one tied to both ends of my mustache, and I'm walking in the door and I'm like, Sean Payton, $10 million a year, $12 million a year. Yeah. You name your number. You come over here and turn, Trevor Lawrence into the next Drew Brees.
True. That's a great point. Now, that would be the first choice, but if he doesn't want to go to Jacksonville, now, if he has an opportunity to either go to Jacksonville or Dallas, I mean,
I'm just saying.
You don't think McCarthy's going to get fired? But I'm going to tell you like this. Now, first of all, I hope
if they're going to fire him, they better hurry up and do it because we already know Sean Payton's stepping down.
Well, I'm going to tell you how it probably went down, or it could have went down, and I'm speculating right here, but you never know with these things. Who knows? Who knows if Jerry Jones didn't give Sean Payton a call when he was on the beach and be like, hey, Sean, this is Jerry. This is Jerry Jones. Hey, we want you. We want you. So whatever we have to do, and that's that. And then Sean.
But they didn't do whatever they had to do,
Huh?
They didn't do whatever they had to do, though.
Well, the first thing Sean Payton had to do was quit. Was retire.
They didn't close him. They didn't close him.
Now, but who knows if they have something behind the scenes to where it's like, and I'm not saying this is the case because, like you said, right now McCarthy is still there.
And I don't think Jerry feels like McCarthy has failed him.
Well,
so, when they started looking elsewhere with Jason Garrett, it had been a long time of Garrett coming up short.
Jerry Jones, but I did hear my favorite owner, Jerry Jones, go in the media last week and say that whatever it takes to make his team better, because, I was in there saying that, okay, they're making all this money and Jerry has too much pride in this and that. He did say whatever it takes to make the team better, and he has some decisions to make as far as coaches. Now, of course, the first thing Sean Payton had to do was, and he gave a lot of credit, and we're talking about Sean Payton, won the Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints. I mean, was there right after Hurricane Katrina and got that team back on the map, got that team going, got that team on the map, period, got them to a Super Bowl. The first year he was there, Sean Payton led them to the divisional round, lost that game against the Chicago Bears. No, won a divisional round game, lost the game against the Chicago Bears. I remember that game. That was Reggie Bush rookie season. And lost that game to the Chicago Bears and Brian Urlacher. Then a few years later, of course, they won the Super Bowl. So he's been a tremendous coach. He's been a tremendous 152-89 overall. Again, Super Bowl victory. But who knows what kind of agreement they've had. Hey, if you get out of what you're doing over there, and I'll get out of what I'm doing over here with my situation with McCarthy, talking about McCarthy, and who knows. But now again, that's wishful thinking on my part to think that he's going to be in Dallas. He strictly said today that he wanted to take a season out, but they all get up there and say that and say all the right things. He praised the Bensons, which I'm sure he was very sincere about. Now I'm not trying to say that. He's definitely grateful about what the Benson family was able to do for him, and Mickey Loomis and those guys. But you have ever since Drew Brees retired, he's like, man, what do I have to work with here? He didn't have Michael Thomas the entire season. Now Jameis Winston, he's out with the torn knee. He's a free agent. You have a running back that everybody is saying is speculating or wondering if that's going to be your franchise quarterback. And then, so they have some things. Of course, they have a tremendous defense. But I just think more than anything, of course, He's probably burning out these coaches. Hey, man, it takes a lot of energy to be a head coach. A lot.
I really think, Greg, it's more about just he really wants a change of scenery. They've gone as far as they can go, with this team, and they've competed for Super Bowls. They've taken it as far as they can go. It's time for Sean Payton just to go on to a new challenge, a new team, and build something different and try to do it all over again. And it's time for the Saints to go ahead and rebuild. Trade away your big pieces that you have, both on in Davenport and Jordan, and then of course Kamara, and then even the wide receiver Thomas. Trade those guys and rebuild.
Well, that's essentially what I just said. And my thing is with the Cowboys is.
It was wishful thinking to think that they could, bring in Jameis Winston or use Taysom Hill to try to continue their run, of dominance after Drew Brees. Basically, they were just keeping the team on life support. Yeah, but absolutely. But when you're that caliber of a team, it's about winning. About winning the big one.
That's my point. So that's why I said if it's any opportunity out there, I guarantee you the Dallas Cowboys are the most attractive offer for him if it was an offer on the table and they got rid of McCarthy because of what they have in place on both sides of the ball. What do you think Sean Payton?
I don't think anybody would disagree with you.
What do you think Sean Payton can do with?
I think he wants to be there.
That's my point.
I think he wants to be there. I just don't think Jerry Jones is willing to admit that he made a mistake hiring Mike McCarthy.
Well, you heard me say last week about his pride.
And he's loyal and he is prideful.
Maybe Jerry Jones at this point, being 80 years old.
No, what you have to bank on is that Stephen Jones is going to talk him into it, because Stephen Jones, we know who the football mind in that family is, and let's face it, you give Jerry all the credit in the world for building an organization. But the Cowboys really started getting good again when Stephen Jones really started started rising to stardom when it came to personnel decisions and whatnot, and in the draft, and being able to tell Dad, no, we're not drafting Manziel, we're going to draft Frederick.
He has relinquished a lot of that to his son, Stephen. But at the end of the day, what Jerry Jones wants, Jerry Jones gets. And if Jerry Jones wants Sean Payton, I don't think his pride in this situation, because I heard him kind of talk in that regard last week. I think that's why he made those comments. Whatever it takes to get this team better. Now, you heard me say last week about Jerry Jones and his pride. But I think at this point in Jerry Jones' career, at 80 years old, if you have a chance to get a guy, and like he said last week when he was doing the interview or whatever, he said, there's no Bill Belichick that's going to walk through the door. Everybody's talking about all these coaches that's on the table. None of these coaches have proven anything, that they're any good. It's no Bill Belichick walking through that door. I think the way
I think Sean Payton's probably about as close as it gets.
As close as it gets. And I would not be surprised, even though Sean Payton is saying all the right things right now, he's probably going to look at broadcasting and this and that. All I'm saying is we will see how it shakes out by the time next season starts. Now, Mike McCarthy might just be the coach again.
The New York Giants hire Sean Payton. Oh, man.
But you know what?
Brian Daboll looks to be the favorite for that job.
Yeah, see, there's too many coaching scenarios right now. That's why I don't really want to deal.
But if you were to end up in Dallas's division, that would be tough. And how do you think the fan base, you're a part of it, how do you think the fan base would feel if, Sean Payton ended up somewhere in the Cowboys division or in the NFC and would end up taking it to the Cowboys in the future? And Jerry could have had them when they both wanted each other.
Like I said,
you don't want Sean Payton to be the girl that got away.
Like I say, Eddie, you never know what goes on behind closed doors, man, behind the scenes. Of course, they're going to get up there and they're going to say all the right things. The only thing, if that was the case, the first thing Sean Payton has to do is get out of this situation. Now, since he's out of this situation, we'll see what transpires with Mike McCarthy in the coming weeks.
So are you willing to pay the remainder of McCarthy's salary, because you're going to have to for firing him without cause?
Yeah, Jerry's probably like, hey, man.
Are you willing to pay the compensation? Are you willing to pay the compensation to the Saints to get Sean Payton? And is Sean Payton willing to go ahead and come right now without taking a year off? They have to figure all that out right now. Also, right underneath McCarthy's nose.
I know. Jerry knows that, and he would have to trade for Sean Payton. And he probably feels with this roster, Sean Payton is probably worth 2 first-round draft picks. They probably figured they'll be drafting late in the first round anyway. And again, this is all speculation. That's me as a Cowboys fan wanting Sean Payton over there. I was surprised when he became available today, or pretty much when he exited the New Orleans Saints, even though he says he's going to sit out a season and all. But he said he might. I mean, you got to really parse those words when these people talk. And he didn't really definitively say, no, I'm not going to coach next season. No, I mean, it's always a word or two in there which leaves the door open. So you have to kind of read between the lines a lot of times. But you know what? You know I want to get that Jacksonville job before we move on and talk about the Chiefs and the Bills and the remainder of these playoff games coming up. I want Byron Leftwich to get the job in Jacksonville. He's going for a second interview. I don't know if he's going to get it. But I even heard Larry Fitzgerald speak very highly of Byron Leftwich. Now, Byron Leftwich, we know, played in Jacksonville. We know that. Of course, he's a black head coach. But, of course, if they have a chance to get Sean Payton, I will agree with you that you take Sean Payton in that situation. Now, I'm not a fool. But if it's not Sean Payton, back to Jerry Jones' point, I mean, why can't, it's mighty funny how all of a sudden now Eric Bieniemy, he's no longer in any of these conversations. But okay, you got Byron Leftwich in the mix, who actually played in Jacksonville. I heard Larry Fitzgerald say that he would love for Byron Leftwich to get the job because, for one, he knows Byron. He's a student of the game. He's a tremendous offensive mind. He knows how to connect with his players. And the fact that you have a guy that played right there, again, like I always say, you know how to connect with these guys. He knows how to put himself in players' shoes. And I think Byron Leftwich, you don't know if he can do the job until you give him a chance. You keep regurgitating all these other coaches and some of these other coaches that have proven that they're not any good. Why not give this guy a chance? He may be something like Mike Tomlin. So that's where I'm at with that. Give Byron Leftwich the job. He's a former quarterback. He's going to tutor your boy Trevor Lawrence, and a guy that's well respected. The players love playing for him. And again, he knows the game. I say, why not Byron Leftwich? But we shall see. We shall see how that goes. Hey, so of course we're going to talk about the Barry Bonds, and so you say they were omitted again from the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. But let's talk
about the now that we talked about the Bengals and the Titans a little bit.
Yeah.
Joe
Titans
Burrow. Hey, 9 sacks. You think that if you're able to get 9 sacks on the opposing quarterback, that you feel like you should win that game? They definitely held Joe Burrow and company, under the amount of points I think we all thought they would score, especially as explosive as they've been.
Right.
But just like true to form in all the other games we've seen leading up to this moment, when they needed a big play, Burrow was able to find Chase, and Chase was able to get open. There isn't anybody that can cover this guy, and that's why going up against the Chiefs, as we saw, I know that game was in Cincinnati, and this really is a different Chiefs team. Patrick Mahomes is a different player in the playoffs. He's a different animal.
Let's talk about the Bills and the Chiefs.
But I'm telling you, this game is going to be a toss-up because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, there's a corner in the league that can cover him.
Hey,
and so whenever
I don't think it'll be a toss-up. Well, they did. They beat the Chiefs 34-31.
And don't think the Chiefs were trying to win that game. That was a shootout.
But I don't think they were trying to win like they'll be trying to win this upcoming Sunday. I mean, but we're talking about that in a second, though. But the thing about it is, as far as to your point about the 9 sacks, that's a testament right there to Joe Cool right there. That shows you how cool he is. What other quarterback do you know? How many other quarterbacks do you know, Eddie, that can endure 9 sacks and still keep his cool and will his team to victory like that? A guy like Joe Burrow, I mean, the guy has ice in his veins, man. He is a great quarterback, 25 years old, and he's only going to get better. I don't see him slowing down at all. I don't see him. But one thing they're going to have to do, and this is the point I'm making as far as him enduring 9 sacks in that game and was able to overcome it. Of course, Derrick Henry was not the same Derrick Henry that we've seen. He has that plate in his foot. And even though I thought he would come back and hit the ground running, it just wasn't enough because Ryan Tannehill's 3 interceptions. On the first play of the game, he threw an interception. And against Joe Burrow and those guys, of course, Evan McPherson kicked that winning field goal, who's a great rookie kicker from the University of Florida, kicked that winning field goal to send them to the next round in that championship game. So the Bengals are a team to be reckoned with. We know what they can do.
You know who caught the pass to set that up, right?
Huh?
You know who caught the pass to set that up?
Who?
Jamar Chase.
Oh, well, you know how I feel about Jamar Chase. I mean, the guy is he's a superstar wide receiver already. And your boy DJ Reader, formerly of the Texans, had 6 tackles, a couple of behind the scrimmage tackles, what that did too, that put that pressure on Tannehill and got Tennessee in the position to where they could not really employ that play action passing game.
The turnover at the end of the game is really what cost them.
And that's DJ
Forcing
Reader.
Tannehill to try to squeeze it in a tight window.
Absolutely.
Ball gets batted up in the air, and the rest is history.
DJ Reader. Yeah, so the Bengals are for real. I totally agree with that. Now, before we talk about the Chiefs and the Bengals, of course, we're going to talk some NBA real quick. It's not too much to talk about in NBA tonight. I guess the Lakers are playing the Nets tonight, and Anthony Davis may be back tonight. I'm not sure. So we'll see what transpires in that game, what happens. Of course, Kyrie is not going to play. I'm not going to go there again. But, hey, man, I was so impressed with Josh Allen, even though I picked the Chiefs. And, of course, I was impressed with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes happened. But what's your take on that game, man? I mean, where do we start with that game?
You start with the quarterbacks to talk about the quarterback play. Really, you've got to feel for Josh Allen and the way that he was able to battle toe-to-toe with Mahomes, having the recipe for success every single time they needed a big play. Gabriel Davis setting the NFL record for touchdowns in a
over 200 yards
game.
Receiving, right?
What an unlikely hero Davis. He has flashed throughout the season, he has not shown to be uncoverable. He was knocking people on their ass with the moves he was putting out there. He was running his routes. Literally late in that game. And there's, to me, I hate to say it, the loss kind of falls on Leslie Frazier allowing the Chiefs offense to do what they did in 13 seconds. It's just, and also you got to kind of lay some blame at the foot of the head coach. They should have kicked a kick that had to be returned in some form or fashion. That way, you're talking about maybe 8 seconds on the clock, 7 seconds. You cut those couple plays down. Instead of having time for 3 plays, one of them being a field goal, they only had time for 2. There was a myriad, like you like to say, of things that went wrong in the end there. But I really felt for Josh Allen because he had Mahomes beat. Mahomes should have been beat, and the defensive coaching staff, I feel like, and the special teams coaching staff let them down.
But that's just how cold Mahomes is, man. Hey, Mahomes was not going to be denied. I'm going to tell you, both of those teams scored 25 points in the last 2 minutes of regulation. And I'll be honest, fast forward into the 13th second, hey, man, I promise you, and I'm not just saying this right now. Now, I actually thought, okay, now it's over now. Now, Josh Allen has done it again. He's come back, scored another touchdown. What's up with the Chiefs' defense? Of course, you lost to Honey Badger early on in that game, and that was glaring. I mean, because a lot of those passes that Josh Allen was completing, now he was throwing dimes. But it was busted coverages on a couple of those passes where the safety should have been over there in that area where that pass was thrown, where Davis was, at least somewhere over there trying to negate that pass, and he was nowhere to be found.
A lot of success Tyrann Mathieu was off improvisation. Like, he was improvising.
But that's why I said, the thing about Josh Allen, he's become more of a student of the game, and how smart he played in that game, it was not surprising. But you know what? When that game first started, Buffalo came down and scored, made it 7-0. Kansas City came down and scored, or whatever it was, but they were back and forth. But the last few minutes of that game, when they were going back and forth like that, I mean, that was the most exciting stuff I've ever seen. But the thing about it is, Patrick Mahomes, both of those guys threw for over 300 yards. Josh Allen, like you said, threw for 4 touchdowns. No interceptions by either one of those guys. They rushed for 69 and 68 yards, respectively. Patrick Mahomes, 69 yards. Josh Allen, 68 yards. Now, we knew Josh Allen was going to use his legs more times than not, and they were going to utilize him. I mean, it's so much that went on in that game. It's really hard to really just harken back and really just break it down quarter for quarter, because the last few minutes were so scintillating and exciting. It's like that's what really sticks out. Yeah, that's what really sticks out in your mind.
Had
right
nothing
there.
Left. It seemed like.
Yeah, for
you
real,
kind of got the feeling that you knew that the last team to touch the football was going to be the team to win.
But the thing about Patrick Mahomes, Eddie, not to cut you off, apologize about that. But the thing about Patrick Mahomes the point I was going to make about Patrick Mahomes is it shows you how healthy he is this year. And it almost makes me wonder, not to take anything away from Tampa winning that Super Bowl last season. And, of course, he was without a couple of linemen as well. But he was playing on one leg in that game. You saw his scrambling ability. And after that first drive that that Josh Allen went down and scored, and I'm saying, okay, Patrick Mahomes has to answer with a touchdown right here because Josh Allen has come to play. Patrick Mahomes like, I'm Patrick Mahomes, and this is what I do. And his scrambling ability and his way to avoid the pass rush, his improvisation was just second to none in that game. And that really kept Buffalo on their heels. And of course, Andy Reid with his play calling, I mean, is second to none right now, man. And what about Tyreek Hill? That pass, that 64-yard, that 64-yard pass.
You know why they call him the cheetah?
And he gave him the peace sign, the cheetah.
The guy that was actually in front of him whenever he was throwing it. The guy had the angle on him, and
see ya.
Tyreek was still able to take it to the house. Phenomenal athlete,
speedster, bro.
But you talk about Josh Allen and how he was dropping dimes and how he was able to find the holes in the coverage. It's because it's important to note that Kansas City was getting pressure in collapsing the pocket on Josh Allen consistently late in that football game. I know on the back end the defense was sort of gassed, but that pass rush was giving Josh Allen every bit of they had. They had that offensive line just as gassed as they were, and the defensive line for the Chiefs was winning. So you saw multiple times Allen 5-step drop, 7-step drop, immediately having to get skinny and step up into the pocket and evade that first little bit of pressure that you're getting off the edges from the defensive ends, and then get outside the pocket, reversing his fields multiple times, extending the play, and then being able to find somebody open down the field. That was a phenomenal performance. That right there is important to note when you look at that, the way that Chiefs were able to get after him with Jones and with Frank Clark, and you look at who they've got ahead of them, the Cincinnati Bengals, who couldn't keep the Titans out of the pocket either. Joe Burrow, was able to sustain 9 sacks. How are the Bengals going to keep Clark and Jones out of their backfield? I don't know how they're going to do it. But Josh Allen was able to avoid, able to use his legs to keep the Bills in that game.
That's true. And hey, man, Josh Allen is special. Now, again, like we said earlier, now you have Mahomes in the AFC. To your point about Aaron Rodgers, he shouldn't want to come over there with these guys. I mean, now you have, Mahomes, well, hey, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan like that, but he's a bad, like Stephen A., the great Stephen A., like he's a bad man. I will say that. But the Packers were overrated. I'm glad they didn't make it. But the thing about it is with the Chiefs, man, and even when they got the ball back with 1:54 when they went up 33-29, I said that's too much time for Patrick Mahomes. And soon as he scored a touchdown, here comes Josh Allen right back. Bam. And so when it was 13 seconds left, this is the point I was going to make a minute ago. When it was 13 seconds left, I said, damn. I said, okay, this game should be over. But this is a great game, and you can't fault Patrick Mahomes for this game. Josh Allen, he was just able to will his team. And he thought he had won it twice.
Now, let me ask
you
this.
See him on the sideline. He was, let's go. He was trying to get his defense fired up. He was hugging players like he thought the game was over. But he had to remember, you had a guy by the name of Patrick Mahomes on that other sideline over there, and he didn't want to go home. He wanted to get to the next level as well. So Patrick Mahomes, when it was 13 seconds left, I said, if he starts this drive with 13 seconds at the 25-yard line, that was when Tony Romo was talking about maybe they should squib kick and all this and that. I'm saying to myself, because I picked the Chiefs, I'm saying to myself, please don't squib kick. Please be dumb and kick the ball to where they have 13 seconds when the clock starts. Once he got that ball at the 25-yard line, I said, I guarantee you they have a couple of big plays in them. What happened? First play, Tyreek Hill. And Travis Kelce, he's not getting enough credit for it. Well, I give him a lot of credit for the way he handled that situation, because that route that Travis Kelce ran, for one, great job by Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy for calling those plays that they did and for utilizing those 13 seconds. But the accuracy of Patrick Mahomes on that play to Travis Kelce, that route he ran where he kept that defender at bay and kept that outside leverage, then he had another defender right there in the middle. If he would have just took off straight ahead and actually panicked and they would have converged on him, and Mahomes probably wouldn't have had a window to fit that ball in. But what Travis Kelce did, he took off going forward by 3 or 4 steps, then he stemmed out toward the DB that was playing on the outside leverage, kept him at bay, then he pushed it back up vertical, and that gave him that space between the linebacker that was right here, number 58, and that cornerback. That gave him that open window. And what a great job by Patrick Mahomes to put that ball on the money, because when Patrick Mahomes first dropped back, I'm saying to myself, okay, you don't have that much time left, because that's when they had like 8 seconds or whatever. Because that was the second play after the Tyreek Hill play. And as soon as he dropped back, I said, you have to get rid of the ball. But he didn't panic. He waited for Travis Kelce to make his move and become open, realizing how much time he had, unlike the Dallas Cowboys did the week before. and he actually a perfect throw that gave Travis Kelce a chance to catch the ball in stride and continue upfield. But what I like what Travis Kelce did more than anything, even though he went forward a few yards,
he got down.
He realized he had to get down, man. And Harrison Butker, who missed a field goal earlier,
I was wondering
and an extra
if
point.
he was going to make it. I mean, after what
Me
happened
too,
earlier,
man,
but he nailed it. And you mentioned Romo and mentioning the squib kick. I don't know. You think that you want?
I love listening to Romo.
You think that you want to because of the time
$8
kick it
buck
to where it has to be returned? But let me tell you something. Tyreek Hill had already put the fear of God in Sean McDermott.
You think?
And there's
Real
no
tough.
way, and along with Byron Pringle and the explosive speed that the Chiefs have, there was, you could see why they would rather just with 13 seconds kick it deep out the back of the end zone, take their chances. You think maybe he's got 2 plays, if we can, get one of them to be incomplete or stop them on one of these plays, and maybe you've got an opportunity to win the game, and they don't even get a chance at a field goal.
Right.
I can understand where they're coming from because the Chiefs have that type of elite speed that just scares the life out of special teams coordinators and head coaches. I mean, could you imagine if they do the squib kick, it goes bouncing down there, and Tyreek Hill still gets his hands on it, and now you don't
saw that
have
punt return he had.
You don't have it exactly. You don't have an orthodox coverage set up because you ran that squib kick, and then he ends up taking that to the house.
Hey, man. Every time he touches the ball, he's a threat. And see, that's what really stood out more than anything. Now, the Bills, Diggs didn't show up that game. Of course, Gabriel Davis did, and I think he's really going to blossom next season with Josh Allen. They're going to get better and better and better, I think. But I'm going to tell you like this, man. The Chiefs, they're just clicking on all cylinders right now.
It'll be their 3rd year working together.
Yeah, right. The Chiefs, but they have so much talent. And again, you have McKinnon now that you have to worry about coming out of the backfield. Now you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire who's getting back healthy. So those are 2 backs that you have to worry about, not only running the football, but in the pass game as well. But they just have so many weapons. And do you know, I seen a mock draft where they have the Chiefs picking Jameson Williams, even though he's coming off that ACL. Could you imagine Jameson Williams? He doesn't have to rush back. He comes back running that 4-2, 4-3 with the Chiefs. That should be illegal. But we'll see what transpires, what happens with that moving forward. But the Chiefs just have too much firepower. Hey, Patrick Mahomes, man, and that dime he threw to Travis Kelce in overtime right there. Once they got the ball in overtime, when I saw dude do this, he said that they won the toss, that they want to receive the kick. I said, that's ball game.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to ask you before we moved on.
I call game.
The NFL overtime rules.
Yeah.
Under attack, as they say.
Right.
People are a little pissed off because you feel like maybe you were robbed a little bit of something that could have been even more special than it was, with the way those 2 quarterbacks and those 2 offenses were playing the game at that point in time. I think I saw a meme that said, 142 to 135. Chiefs over Bills. That's what the score would have been if the overtime rules were actually, how they should be, which is you feel like at some point they have to explore, in situations like this, whether it be postseason games or what have you, or if it's 100% of the time, you have to explore giving each team the opportunity to touch the ball.
Yeah, but you know what?
Especially, when you look at games like this, I know the narrative behind the old school. The reason it is your defense should be able to stop them and win it just as much as your offense. But I think as the game progresses towards a place where defenses are at a disadvantage to the offense, then I think that becomes, we've now found ourselves at a place where when we get to overtime, it's no longer, your chances of winning are no longer the same whenever your defense is on the field first as opposed to when your offense is on the field first. And so you've got to explore doing something
they're definitely going to
try to go back to that competitive balance.
Yeah,
give the people what they want, Caesar.
Well, the thing about it is, too, you also have to think about the players, too, Eddie, in that regard, in the fact that it's so much wear and tear. And with all these concussions and how violent the game is these days, man, you see, if you look at the injury report every week, it's so many guys on the injury report just from these collisions and just from how fast and strong and violent the game is. So what happens is, 30 minutes of pure violent hell goes on, And then, you're going to ask these guys to play another 10 minutes or whatever have you. So I'm not too against just having to be sudden death. And I mean, it's kind of to see it come down to a coin toss.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what
that
are we gonna do?
Right there.
We're gonna have a scrum for the football.
Well, maybe 8
coin
minutes,
toss because
but not a
you
full
feel
10 minutes or
you
another.
still feel like it's unfair when the offense has an advantage, and if your offense is gonna get the football first, we're screwed.
Well, that's exactly what happened. Because right when Patrick Mahomes, when they said the Chiefs were gonna get the ball, I said that is ball game, bro. I said the way the Chiefs were rolling, I felt
the exact same way. Had Josh Allen gotten it first.
Oh yeah,
well.
definitely.
I felt the exact same
That's why
way.
I said whoever wins this toss, that's probably
Gabriel
going to be
Davis was going to catch his 17th touchdown of the game, and the Bills were going to win.
Hey, but you know what? It's a violent game, and I'm sure they're going to explore that. But that's why they call it sudden death. Sudden death. So it's sudden. That's the word sudden. Sudden. Like that's how sudden it happens right there. But hey, but we'll see if they explore that because again, there's so much that can happen when you have these guys continue to play and bang heads all night like that. I mean, the game is so violent. But again, sudden death means if the team gets the ball first, your death can be sudden. And that's exactly what happened because of the exploits of Patrick Mahomes. But real quick, moving on. Now, let me get your picks real quick.
Right, Chiefs, Bengals, Rams, 49ers.
Okay, Chiefs, Bengals. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'm going to go with the Chiefs playing at home. As much respect and as much love as I have for Joe Burrow, been watching him ever since he was a backup to J.T. Barrett at Ohio State. And I did not know the guy was going to be this great. And then, of course, then he went to LSU and captured a national championship. But the guy is special. And the receivers that he has at his disposal, a nice running back in Joe Mixon, being coached well. The defense is not to where it's going to be, but they play grimy and gritty. They do some things to help that team as well. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs because Patrick Mahomes and those guys have been there. They're playing at home. And I think they're just too explosive, just as explosive, more experienced. And I think what's going to be the difference in this game is the play calling of Andy Reid. I just think he's going to put these guys in a position to succeed. And I don't think Patrick Mahomes wants to see this guy who's only a year younger than him, actually, even though Patrick Mahomes is in his, fourth or fifth year or whatever. But I don't think Patrick Mahomes wants that second Super Bowl. And I don't think he's going to be denied at home. You're going to have Tyrann Mathieu back. Again, the concussion test, how many, 1, 2, 3, he's good to go. So you're going to have him back. And I just think with all those weapons, like we talk about the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, and those guys, I think the Chiefs are going to strike early and often. Even though the Chiefs defense, they did give up 34 points to Joe Burrow in the last game, I think the Chiefs are going to be that more zoned in this game. And I think all that did was wake the Chiefs up for the Bengals coming into town, realizing that the Bengals can beat them. So I think the Chiefs win that game. I don't know a score. I don't like predicting scores and none of that. I just think the Chiefs will win.
Well, here's what I'm going with. When you look at these two matchups, the NFL is hoping that they get a Chiefs-Rams showdown in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Those are the two big, you have to think, are the big money, big market teams that would bring the biggest draw for the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. However, like you said, you're on the fence. When you talk about the Rams and the 49ers, it could go either way.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with that.
I'm
game.
going to pick the San Francisco 49ers
game,
because I believe that defense has figured out what they need to do to stop these particular teams that they've been up against in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They have figured it out against their division foe. I'm telling you, if the 49ers and the Rams, if you took the team that was the 49ers, you put the 49ers in any other uniform and put them in another division. Let's say that they're the Minnesota Vikings or whatever, and they're playing in this game against the Rams. I'm probably picking the Rams all day.
You know what? I'm changing my... Hey, cuz, I got you. I'm going with the 49ers, man. The 49ers going to make magic happen.
Don't let them do it, Daryl. I'm
49ers going to make magic happen. Let's go, Niners.
They understand their opponent better than, any other... whoever the Rams going to face, I'm going with the 49ers because of the familiarity with that defense and how they've shown that they can shut down the Sean McVay offense. Are they going to do it? It remains to be seen, but I am picking the 49ers in that game. And when we look over in the AFC, how could you not pick the Chiefs after what they did to the Bills in that type of game? However, I've seen the Bengals beat them before. You saw what Gabriel Davis, the third wide receiver for the Bills, was able to do to the Chiefs defense. Think about what a third wide receiver named T. Higgins might be able to do.
Think about it. Can they protect Joe Burrow?
And
the Chiefs don't have a great pass rush right now, but I think they might look great come Sunday.
But one thing about Joe Burrow is he is going to get rid of the football quickly.
That's what they have to do.
I think that is going to be part of the plan. Get rid of the football quickly, and a lot of that is going to have to do with can they get Joe Mixon involved in the passing game early, let him be that safety valve that Joe Burrow can keep the football down to, and then keep drives alive doing that. And if they do that, Bengals will win. I like the Bengals. I like the all underdog Super Bowl. Maybe the Chiefs come in a little bit, with a little bit of a hangover after that big game against the Bills.
That wasn't an emotional game.
Let's just face it. That was a game unlike any game we've ever seen in the NFL. Ever. I don't think I've. I thought I was watching the Madden Bowl.
Came down to the wire, but that game was really.
I mean, that's a great point. There was some John Madden football.
How much juice are they going to have left? Right. How much juice are they going to have left after that very emotional game? Now, granted, Andy Reid has been there, done that, and of course, Patrick Mahomes has been there, done that. Maybe they get their rest throughout the week. That's when you rest them throughout the week, and as a coach, you let these guys get off their feet and really get rejuvenated and refocused. And I think they will. Especially with that crowd behind them. But that's a great point,
We've seen it happen before, Greg. I mean, you think about it going up, all through the season, going back to last year. We all felt like the AFC was going to come to a head, and it was going to be the Chiefs and the Bills. They were the two best teams with the two best young quarterbacks. All around, the rosters are completely solid, top to bottom, offense and defense. You felt like it was going to come down to the Bills and Chiefs. And because they met themselves in the divisional round instead of in the AFC Championship like they did last year, you do feel like there is some human nature to feel like, you beat the one team standing in your way who you really thought might be a better team than you, and you could take the Bengals lightly.
That's why I don't think they will. Because
in the back, in the back of your mind, not necessarily look past them because you know that there's only one game left after that, and it's the Super Bowl.
Right.
You got to have this one to get there. But beating that biggest opponent, beating the number one contender, sometimes can cause you to come out flat in the next game.
It could, and again, I just think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid won't let that happen.
I mean, even if they do, they can come back.
We'll see what the defense does. Yeah, but you don't want to try to play comeback against the Bengals in that explosive offense. Now, we're going to see what the Bengals look like as far as their lack of experience playing in a game that's going to send them to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, cool as I don't know what. I'm talking about cooler than a fan. So we'll see if that continues, if that trend continues this upcoming Sunday. I just think Pat Mahomes and those guys get it done. But I do think that in order to protect Joe Burrow more, you have to have a lot of two-step drops. Even out of that shotgun, you have to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And because, Chris Jones and those guys are definitely, because Spagnuolo is going to try to blitz, even though they have those weapons at his disposal. So we shall see what happens. So you're going with the
I'm going with all underdog.
You're going with all underdogs. I'm going with the I'm gonna go with, and even though I don't really like the Rams, they're playing at home, and I like the way they've been playing lately. And I would love to see I would love to see the 49ers win, but I'm gonna pick the Rams because they're playing at home. And if Stafford can continue to be the Stafford that he's been over the last few weeks and don't turn the ball over, with the defense playing the way they are, with them flying around like that, with Sean McVay utilizing Odell Beckham Jr. the way he is, of course, Secretariat and wide receiver over there on the other side, Cooper Kupp. And so I'm picking the Rams to do what they do at home. Hopefully those LA Rams fans, they can bring some kind of noise for the Rams and don't come in there all cool like.
Oh, there's gonna be 49ers fans all over the place. You feel like
some star-studded event or some. You know how LA.
I feel like Trent Williams and them hogs up front are going to push around that defensive line on the outside, on the edges. I mean, we all know. We know Aaron Donald is going to get pressure up front. We know he can shut down the run and disrupt run plays up the middle.
Right.
But out on the edges where you can push an H. Von Miller, where you can push a Leonard Floyd, where you can get a push out there and stretch that defense open for your running backs, and then have explosive athletes like Deebo Samuel put his toe in the dirt and hit a gap unlike anything we've seen before, creating a new position while he does so.
Yeah. He's going to get paid.
He's
going to get paid, bro.
It's going to be a treat to watch because, like I said, the 49ers they're the one team left that has that old school feel to them. Mm-hmm. And if they find their way in the Super Bowl, you'll get a taste of old school versus new age because it's going to be either the Chiefs or the Bengals, both two very explosive, come at you with everything they got types of offenses against a stout, bend. It's not an aggressive defense,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd say they're probably the best type of bend but don't break and be opportunistic at getting turnovers type of defense that I've seen. And they are extremely good against the run.
And again, they have and. Speaking of defense, real quick, I just want to say this about Tampa. They had some DBs that was out too, so that really did not help Tom Brady in his quest for a back-to-back Super Bowl.
I mean, it was clear they were.
But that's part of the game.
They were
That's why I
deficient
really didn't want to
in
really
depth.
talk too much about that. Yeah, obviously. So I would love to see him come back. But I'm telling you, man, the Rams and the 49ers, that's going to be a physical game. Those guys know each other. And the Rams, they've lost 2 games this season already. It's just hard to believe that the 49ers are going to beat them 3 times. It's not hard to believe because it can't happen.
Because they beat them 6 times in a row already.
Well, they beat them 6 times in a row already. But at some point, the Rams, with all this talent that the Rams have on both sides of the football, this is their time. They're playing at home to go to the Super Bowl. There's no excuses for the Rams
to stay right at home
lose
and
this
play
game.
it. I mean, you feel like the stars are aligned, and if they don't do it now, if it doesn't happen now, could you imagine them being set up any better to make it happen?
Man, it's not set up any better. It's not set up any better. This is the Rams' chance. Now, I don't think the Rams.
Only problem is
I don't think the
pesky
Rams will beat
Niners
the Kansas City Chiefs if they played.
Kyle Shanahan and Nico
That's
Ryan.
an interesting game too, though, because the Rams bringing on defense. I don't think the Rams can beat the Chiefs. Man, I'm still thinking Mahomes is going to find a way to win that Super Bowl.
I mean, when you saw what that, it makes you question when you saw what the Tampa Bay defense was able to do to Mahomes in the Super Bowl when they were
that's just it.
I mean, they
Mahomes
had
was
him
on one leg
under duress.
He was on one leg, and they didn't have their offensive line is a lot better this season as well. They were out of.
If he's forced to move around out of the pocket and run like he was against the Bills, I mean, there's always an increased chance that,
fast and physical
that
too.
He could be right back on one leg again with one shot.
Right. Well, you know what?
We've seen that happen.
That's why these are the last 4 teams standing right here, because all of these teams are great teams. So these games can go either way.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm starting to get a little bit of fatigue with the Chiefs. I want the Chiefs to no longer.
I love greatness.
I do love it. Don't get me wrong. I love watching it. I love watching it. But I'd rather see Joe Burrow make it to a Super Bowl now that he's got an opportunity. I'd rather see these Rams and Kyle Shanahan do something like,
I want Patty to get that second one, baby. Add to that resume.
Do something like Brian Billick did with the Ravens and take a really good defense with a promising coordinator and take it to all the way and win a Super Bowl with what people thought was an inferior quarterback or a game manager.
Right.
Those are still impressive types of things to see, just as much as the Chiefs and the Bills, the show they put on this past Sunday.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, if the Chiefs don't win it, I wouldn't mind seeing Joe Burrow win it, of course. I'm a Joe Burrow fan, so we shall see. But I'm picking the Chiefs to win it all, and you're picking who to win it all?
To win it all, the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay. All right, I'm sure Darryl loves that. Hey, but you know what? Before we get out of here, man, I want to get your take. So you say Barry Bonds and we'll talk basketball next week. It's not too much to talk about. Clay's knee is sore. I knew that was going to happen with Golden State, but that's just part of his comeback. The knee is going to be sore. Even though he hurt the knee a couple of years ago, he's missed a couple of games because of knee soreness. A torn ACL, that's going to happen. I mean, I'm speaking from experience right there, but it's nothing to really get too concerned about. I'm more concerned with Draymond Green and that back injury, that calf injury that they say now he has a back issue, a disc issue. So that's what I'm more concerned about is Draymond Green. But Clay is going to have some knee soreness from time to time. It's just a matter of getting in there, getting the right treatment, getting stretched out and everything like that. But he'll still be fine. And I like the way he's come along, the way he's moving around. But that knee is going to be tender. He's going to have some tendinitis from time to time. But that's nothing really to get too alarmed about as long as that Achilles is intact as well. But you say Barry Bonds and Clemens did not get in again?
They did not get in.
I hate that, man.
Neither did Kurt Schilling.
Well, that's not surprising. I mean,
Nor
as great a career as Kurt Schilling, that's not surprising. This is A-Rod's first ballot, right?
Is it?
I think it's his first ballot. So, but
I think I heard on the radio he had 30% of the vote. So he's
how many did Clemens and Bonds have?
Bonds, I think, was 66.
He's supposed to have 75.
I think Clemens was 64, and I think Schilling
a shame, bro.
had 58.
That's a shame.
And
man,
all
Barry
these
Bonds.
Guys,
well, the thing about Barry Bonds and
definitely
Clemens,
make cases for all these guys, and you certainly feel like Schilling.
Well, the thing about Schilling
deserves to be in.
Well, the thing about Schilling, I don't think he's a well-liked guy. So did David Ortiz get in?
Did Big Papi? Let me check it out. I think
David Ortiz.
Papi did get in.
Well, see, and it's flying under the radar. He was linked to some possible steroid use at one point. But the difference is between Barry Bonds and And now Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, they're going to be linked together forever in that regard. But they like David Ortiz, and see, they should be voting. There. See, okay, well, good for David Ortiz. I like Big Papi as well.
I heard that earlier. I just wanted to be sure.
Okay, so he's in there, so that's good for David Ortiz. Big Papi got in. Barry Bonds should be in. Clemens should be in. Pete Rose should be in, but that's a story for another day right there. Barry Bonds, you're talking about the guy, and the reason I say Barry Bonds is because before the steroid era from what? The mid-90s to probably early 2000s or something like that. For one, he never failed the drug test. Before he was suspected of using steroids, even though he never failed the drug test. And you can't punish him for an era that, why single out a few people when you know that it was across the board, that it was running rampant. And the guy had won 4 MVPs before he was even suspected of steroids. So he was a Hall of Famer right there. Then he won 3 more after that. And the same thing for Roger Clemens. Roger Clemens got better as his career went on. And of course, he did some things on Capitol Hill. He said some things, and he put himself in a bad situation. But these are 2 guys that are not liked by a lot of these voters, by a lot of these old school voters, especially Barry Bonds. But it should be based on the numbers. Who transcended the game? Who had more of an impact on the game as a baseball player? Not to mention his Gold Gloves. So the guy has 7 MVPs, plus I think like 8 Gold Gloves, if I'm not mistaken. But who impacted the game more than Barry Bonds in his heyday? His entire career, even at the first part of his career, came in 1986 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he was mashing from day one. Not to mention his time with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he had like over 240 stolen bases by the year 1993. So not to mention the stolen bases. But who had more of an impact other than Babe Ruth? Since Babe Ruth, other than Barry Bonds. And Barry Bonds played against stiffer competition than Babe Ruth did. But they want to look at this guy because they don't like him, and they want to keep him out of the game. Again, it was running rampant at that time. So I hate to hear that these guys did not get in because, again, I just feel like he was a great player. He was a Hall of Fame player before that.
I feel like it's a wrong that needs to be righted one way or another, and I don't know if we're ever going to see anything change with how the Baseball Hall of Fame gets voted on in our lifetime, but it's really something that needs to be looked at. When you got players going in, like you mentioned earlier, Big Papi, David Ortiz, talking with the Hall of Fame media or the National Baseball media today during a Zoom conference, said that he's talking about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, not having them join me in the Hall of Fame. He said it's just really hard for me to believe, to be honest with you.
Man, bro,
and he's one of the most honest and respected minds in baseball right now. One of the most respected analysts to do it, and one of the most respected players to play the game. Clearly going into the Hall of Fame himself, and I think he deserves to be in there. They need to Major League Baseball.
Those voters are holding
whoever the new commissioner is,
guys.
whoever takes over for Manfred, they need to make their first order of business to come in and employ a committee of former players, former coaches, people that are involved in the game, not just the people in the media, and get them to overhaul how the Baseball Hall of Fame is voted for and how the players are elected.
Well, it should have been done.
That's what you need to do. That's what you have to do. That's the only way that it's going to be fair from here on out.
Yeah.
Because right now, clearly, we can tell with everything you mentioned, it is not. But, Greg,
it's not fair. We're out of time. And, hey, we would like to talk about that even more. I hate that news about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens not getting in. 2 of the greatest to ever do it. Roger Clemens, come on, man. How many Cy Youngs did he win? 7 Cy Youngs? Come on, man. Strikeout, third in strikeouts behind Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson. Total strikeouts. Victor, come on, man. One of the most dominant pitchers of all time. But the problem with those 2 are they're linked together. So if you're not going to put one in, they were not going to put the other one in. And they did not endear themselves to people as far as in the media. So it's a shame that the media has to have a personal vendetta against those guys when the numbers clearly suggest that they should be in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? We'll be back next week to chop it up, talk a lot of basketball. Going to get Eddie's take on the Houston Rockets and their progress, see what they're doing, that young team over there. We hadn't talked about the Houston Rockets in a while. And, of course, we'll see what happens tonight with the Los Angeles Lakers and the Brooklyn Nets, see what happens. A lot of these teams, the Suns are still balling. I can go on and on and on, but we'll get back into more NBA basketball, and we're going to start throwing some college basketball in there as well. Don't think we forgot about college basketball. So, again, once football season is over, we're going to talk a lot of basketball. So until next Tuesday, Be safe. Legends live and let live.
Y'all have a good night. We'll see